So AYO, much of your practice revolves around the body as an archive. How does this manifest in your work? And in particular, how does it manifest in the work you have on show here?
I think I'll speak about what we see in the room. There are 3 scores on the floor, and the score is drawn from my memory of my grandparents' homestead in northern Uganda. And I remember visiting them when I was quite young and always being so surprised at how the landscape in rural Uganda was so different from the central part. I mean, in the northern part of Uganda was different from the central. And this comes back to the colonial history of the country, where a lot of infrastructure was concentrated in the capital city. So my education in Uganda was also in the central. So whenever I visited my grandparents, I kind of had to not adapt, but I recognized the difference, you know, and it came about also through language. My mother tongue is Leb-Lango, but it's a language that I never learned formally. From the time I started education, you know, it was always English and so on. So I think this became amplified when I moved to the Netherlands about more than 10 years ago. And then there is this question of assimilating to Dutch culture. And I don't know anybody in the Netherlands who speaks my mother tongue. So I think the question of also how language has been so kind of futile in fostering connection, you know, made me start thinking of ways in which knowledge can only be experienced when when it flows through the body. And so the score that you see there is actually, it's a phonetic score. I used the phonetic score to create a sound sculpture. And the sound sculpture is based on this specific memory of the homestead of my grandparents in northern Uganda. And I perform it with another person. It's kind of like a call and response. And I've written it in a kind of like in a very loose sort of way in which somebody else from a different culture can also sound together with me in space. So later on, this whole installation is going to be activated with another performer. She's actually Dutch. And it was interesting for me to also see how she can use her body and her experiences to actually tap into something that is so specific to me. You know, how can we come and connect and create this sonic sculpture, which is kind of like a homage to my grandparents' homestead, but maybe it also enables other people to have a sense, you know, of that memory.
Well, how does remembering Uganda from the Netherlands, that you kind of answered it already, but would you be able to expand a bit more on that, remembering Uganda from the Netherlands here, and how your work kind of involves that process?
Yeah, I think I think I can talk about that with a specific project called Soundtrack of No Return. The project came about with that question of like, what is the capacity of sound, you know, in remembering history? What is the materiality of sound when remembering history? I came across abu. Abu is a wind instrument specific to Luo people of East Africa. And in the past, this instrument was used in commemorative functions, like when people had passed on, or maybe even weddings. There were just different occasions to like bring people together. The abu would be sounded. And I wanted to create, you know, an abu. But then at that time I'd been working a lot with glass already. And seeing that, you know, I'm based here in the Netherlands, it didn't also feel right to appropriate like materials. I think I wanted to use the materials that I already had and kind of imbue that with the commemorative function of abu. And that's why I started blowing these glasses that you see here. Of course, I'm not able to sound with them like the original Abu, and that was also another frustration, actually, that I couldn't find the original sound online. There's only one instrument that's been archived at the National Museum in Nairobi, and I contacted them to give me share with me a sample of Abu's voice, and they didn't have it. So I kind of took that limitation as an opportunity to score a new sound, and I collaborated with a composer, Yannick Soland, who's based in Switzerland. And yeah, so together we created a new sound for Abu. And while we were doing that, I also came across footage of Uganda, several East African countries in the 1960s. There was this collection of amateur footage, 8mm home footage of this Dutch, it seems like a Dutch civilian who worked there in the 60s. And he just captured these really pivotal moments of East African history, like the Uhuru independence. And there's a commemorative function of the King of Buganda, things that I only heard about, but I never really saw. So it was, at that time, while I was scoring the sound with Yannick, it made absolute sense to find a way to remember these parts of history through the sound that we were making. And that became a film, like an analog film.
What drew you to glass?
I mean, that's a very good question. I was doing a residency at a Mont in New York. This was about 3 years ago, I think. And there was just this amazing facility in Brooklyn, Urban Glass. And I think, glass is a material that I haven't really, up until that point, I hadn't really used glass, but I'd always been enamored by it. It's fragile, it's beautiful, it's strong, it's malleable, it's a craft, and craft traditions is something that I'm very keen to, learn, because it's like this embodied way of making. So when I learned about that facility, I approached them and I just started to work with some master glass blowers there to first make some shapes of Nepenthe. I just found really beautiful botanical illustrations of Nepenthe from the 19th century or so, archived at the Linnean Society in London. And so this curiosity started from there. And then later on, when I came back to the Netherlands, I wanted to continue, but to make objects that were much more closer to my heritage. Yeah.
I'm interested in the relationship between the making of the glass, the blowing of the glass, because these glass sculptures are also instruments of sorts, are they not?
Yes, some of them are. The ones that were blown properly, because mistakes also happen.
Okay.
Like that one is an instrument. If you're thinking of a wind instrument, it has to be specific to make sound. And sometimes it's just not possible to foresee that. Yeah.
And sometimes it also, they're not just sculptural, they're sound works, but they also, you make films as well. Is that right? Which sometimes they feature as props within some of your film work.
Yeah, or even an installation, just like here. Some of them are more like props, and that one is functional. These ones are functional. These ones I made myself. So it's just, it's always a constellation of like the ones that I animate and the ones that are just there.